Hi, I am one of the ambassadors for the Kamloops Okanagan region, and my name is Hannah Peterson. I'm going to do a charcoal drawing lesson today. I just have some willow charcoal because it's easier for me to use instead of stick charcoal. And yeah, let's get started. So here I'm just drawing the first hill. You can kind of see that all of the hills split the paper into three. You have your two sides and then your back one. And then your back hill you're going to start with first so that you create more depth in the picture. So you'll just shade that in a bit, and you're going to want to make sure you smudge it. I just used my hands for all of the blending. And then once you have that blended, you're going to get onto the next part. Here you're just going to add some grass, just short little pieces. This will just make your field look a little more realistic, and you can leave some bald patches here and there because no field is perfect, and just do that until you feel like you have enough grass in your back field. Here you're going to start working on your next hill because you've done enough grass in your corner, and you're going to just darken at the top of the hill so when you bring it down the shading will give it a little bit more depth. And you're also going to do the little part where it goes behind your next hill. I'm going to make that really dark because we're going to add trees there. So just bring down your hill line by shading it slowly and kind of just bringing it down. You can use your fingertips or the side of your fist, just like crumpled up, so that it just brings down the line of the hill and just adds a little bit more depth. The next thing you're going to do is add your barbed wire fence. I just make the mark of one tree just so I know where my forest line will be. But you're going to curve a thin line over top of exactly where your hill was. And those will be your barbed wire fence. You can add 2 lines if you like, or 3, however many you can fit in. And then you're going to make posts. So that's all the little ticks that I'm doing across over top of the line of the field. And then you just add dots on each of the wires that are on your barbed wire fence, and those just count for the barbs. You're just adding to your forest, and I'm not going to do the full thing just so that you can just see the beginnings of the forest, but you'll see the finished product at the end. Just add some trees, just a straight line with branches curving out, and you can layer them on top of each other just to create the idea that it's more of a dense area. And then we're going to move on to our next bit. You're going to shade in your hill just to make it a little bit darker so that you can tell that the next hill we do is on top of it and not behind it. That's all I'm doing right there. Here I'm starting on the last hill that we have, and I'm just going to darken the top of it once again to just create that depth that it's a little bit further away and it's curving down into that valley-ish area. And so you're just going to shade that. Like I said, I just use my fingertips usually for the shading. And you're just going to curve it down. You're going to bring your line past where your original line was for the end of this hill. And you want to make sure that it's layering over top of any trees. Like, you don't want them interrupting this hill because this hill is in front. It's closer to you. So over top of our last hill here, we're just going to layer over top a fence of a barbed wire fence. And it's going to actually blend into a cattle guard, which you'll see there will just be some dark lines across the ground. And that just means that it makes it a little bit easier for our fence line and add something a little different from our other fences. And you'll just make your lines across again. You can wrap around the post, which you'll see a little bit better in our next fence, not this one. And then just the same dots or ticks along the wire just to show that the barbs exist. And here you can see we're going to go back to working on our hill. We're just going to shade it just to show you that it's in front, but this fence is kind of on top of it and behind it, so we just shade along. If you want lighter shading, you can flip your charcoal so it's not pointed like pencil, but just bring it along the side. And then I'll just shade it with my fist here. And this is just to create a little bit more depth for the hills, just so you can tell where they are a little bit better. Here, I turn my charcoal on its side, and I just do some vertical lines. This just makes our fence posts have a little bit more grain to them. It makes them look a little bit more realistic. As you can see, I made mine a bit too short, so I do lengthen them a couple of times. And so that's kind of all I'm doing for this bottom part of our barbed wire fence. Then right here, I start looping the barbed wire around the fence post. So you just bring it a little bit curved. These lines don't have to be straight at all. And you're just going to kind of tie them around, make a little bit of a circle around each post, and then continue it. You can do as many lines of barbed wire as you want. I usually do somewhere between like 2 and 4, just to make it kind of look realistic. And then that is all you're going to do for just building the barbed wire itself, and then we need to add the barbs. Right here, I'm just adding a little bit of detail to the wire. So just to make sure that it doesn't look like a straight line, I just take my charcoal on a sharper area and do a little bit wavy lines on each piece to add the idea that it's like twisted together. You can see I've started adding the barbs to the barbed wire, and these are just little X's, or a C and a backward C connected, because they're just rounded X's. And then you just put around 3 to 4 on each piece of wire, and just make sure that they're kind of evened out a little bit. And that's all you have to do for the barbs. It just takes a little bit to do them. Here you're just going to add the grass along the fence, and you can do a little bit more around fence posts if you prefer, or you can just kind of leave it and just do it straight across. Here you're just going to get started on drawing your cow. We do 2 animals in this, a large cow and then a calf that's jumping. For the cow, you just do her head first, and she's bent over eating, and then you're going to do her back and her hind legs, and then if you make any mistakes, you can just cover them with like a black spot, which is what I do. And also her tail can cover anything with the legs. When I do her head, you can't see it super well from this far back just because we needed to capture the whole thing, but I usually do a fluffy part around her poll, and then add horns and her ears, and then nose and muzzle. And you can just kind of do whatever you want with the cow. It's kind of up to what you decide. I bring her stomach up a little bit so I can put it underneath, and then I put shadows underneath just to give her a little bit more depth, just so she looks a little bit more realistic and part of the picture. And then to cover the face a little bit and the front hooves, because those kind of tend to look a little bit awkward, I bring some grass up just to block that a little bit. We start on the calf, and the calf's head is also down, but instead of eating, it's going to be jumping. So you're going to curve its back up more vertically than the cow, obviously. You'll have 2 front hooves right underneath the calf's head, and then the back hooves will curve up and they'll be slanted because the calf is kicking, and then you can throw the tail up in the air, which is what I do. I usually curve it up just to show a little bit more range of motion, and then you just need to shade underneath. However you draw the calf, that's kind of up to your discretion. You can see here, I'm just going to add a little bit more shading to the hill, just so that the calf and the cow don't stand out quite as much, just so they blend in a little bit more with their surroundings. More of just a depth thing once again, just like their shadows, just makes them a little bit more in place. You're going to flip your charcoal on its side and just do some scribbling motion and then blend it, and those are your clouds, just adding a little bit to your sky, and then you are done. I went back, added in more grass and trees, and this is the finished product. So thank you for drawing.